Dr. Zeftal pressed her long fingers against the cool metal of the transmission console. The lights on the machine flickered red and yellow, showing that their star was dying faster than anyone had predicted. She looked through the large window of the research station and saw the once bright blue sun that had given life to her world for millions of years. Now it burned with an angry orange glow. The Villani scientist turned back to her team. 5 other researchers sat around the curved table, their pale green skin showing the stress marks that appeared when their people felt great fear. Their large eyes, evolved to see in the soft light of their peaceful world, now showed deep worry. "The readings are getting worse," said Dr. Kestai, the youngest member of their group. His voice shook as he spoke. "The star is losing energy 3 times faster than last month. Our biocomputers say we have maybe 5 years before the planet becomes too hot to live on." Zeftal nodded slowly. She had lived for 60 standard years and had never seen anything like this. The Villani had always been a peaceful people. They grew their cities from living trees, powered their world with gentle energy from plants, and had never known war or violence. Their technology was based on working with nature, not fighting against it. "What is this thing that is killing our star?" asked Dr. Melthar, an older scientist whose expertise was in stellar biology. "Our instruments show something is attached to the star's core, something that should not exist." Zeftal pulled up the data on the main screen. A 3-dimensional image appeared, showing their star with dark crystal-like structures growing. Throughout its center, the crystals pulsed with a rhythm that reminded her of a heartbeat, but this heart was drinking the life from their sun. "We have studied this for months," she said. "The crystals are not natural. They were placed there by someone or something. They feed on the star's energy and grow stronger every day. Soon they will consume everything." The room fell silent. Outside, they could see the great biocities of their world. Millions of Villani lived in structures grown from modified trees that reached high into the sky. The cities were beautiful, with flowing organic shapes and gardens that floated in the air. But already, some of the older biostructures were showing signs of stress from the changing climate. "Can we remove the crystals?" asked Kestai. "No," Melthar replied sadly. "They are too deeply connected to the star's core. If we tried to remove them, the star would explode. We do not have weapons that could destroy them without destroying ourselves." "Then we must evacuate," said another scientist. "We must build ships and leave our world." Zeftal shook her head. "We have 800 million people on this planet. Our bioships can carry perhaps 50,000 at most. And where would we go? We have never found another world like ours. Our people need the special conditions of this planet to survive." The weight of their situation settled on the group like a heavy blanket. The Villani had explored space for centuries, but always as observers and scientists. They had found many worlds, but none that could support their unique biology. They needed specific types of plants, particular atmospheric conditions, and the gentle energy patterns of their dying star. Dr. Zeftal walked to another console and activated their most powerful deep space transmitter. This machine could send messages across the galaxy, though they had never used it to contact other intelligent life. The Villani had detected radio signals from other civilizations, but had always chosen to observe rather than make contact. "What are you doing?" asked Kestai. "Something we have never done before," Zeftal replied. "We are going to ask for help." The other scientists looked shocked. The idea of reaching out to unknown aliens went against everything their peaceful culture had taught them. But as they watched their star growing dimmer outside the window, they realized they had no choice. Zeftal began typing on the bio keyboard. The living interface responded to her touch, preparing to send a message farther than any Villani communication had ever traveled. "What will you say?" asked Melthar. "The truth," she answered, "that our world is dying." That we cannot save ourselves. That we are asking anyone who receives this message to remember us. She paused, then added more to the message. She included their entire cultural database, their art, their music, their science, their history. Everything that made the Villani who they were. If they were going to die, at least someone in the galaxy would know they had existed. The transmission began. Energy flowed through the biocircuits, sending the Villani's desperate plea across space at faster-than-light speeds. The message would take years to reach the nearest star systems, and decades to reach the far edges of the galaxy. As the transmission continued, Deftal looked at her team. We will keep sending this message every day. We will share everything. We know about the crystals that are killing our star. Maybe somewhere in the galaxy, there's a species that has seen this before. Maybe someone knows how to fight these things. Do you really believe someone will come? Asked Kestai. Zeftal looked out at their dying star again. In the distance, she could see refugee ships moving between the biocities, carrying people away from the coastal areas where the rising seas had begun to flood the lower levels of their tree cities. I do not know, she said honestly. But we must hope. Hope is all we have left. The transmission continued through the night and into the next day. Across the galaxy, the Villani's message traveled through space, carrying their cry for help to civilizations they had never met. In the depths of space, the signal raced toward a small blue planet where a species called humans had just begun to listen to the stars. Commander Elena Vasquez felt the ship slow down as they dropped out of warp drive. After 15 long years of travel, they had finally reached the Villani star system. She stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and looked at the main screen. But what she saw made her heart sink. The star that had once burned bright blue was now a dull orange color. Dark spots covered its surface where the crystal parasites had grown larger. The light from the star was weaker and redder than it should have been. Even from space, Elena could see that this sun was dying. Sensors are picking up the planet, reported Lieutenant Jackson from his station. It is still there, but the readings are not good. Elena moved to look at the sensor data. The planet that had once been green and blue like Earth was now mostly brown and yellow. The ice caps had melted completely. Large parts of the land were covered by water that had risen from the dying ice. The temperature reading showed the planet was much hotter than when the Villani had first sent their message. Try to contact them, Elena ordered. Use the language protocols Dr. Chen developed. Dr. Sarah Chun had spent the entire 15-year journey perfecting her understanding of the Villani language. She had studied every piece of their cultural database and had even learned to think like them. Now she stood at the communication station and sent out a carefully prepared message. This is Dr. Sarah Chun of the human fleet, she said in the Villani language. We received your message. We have come to help. Please respond if you can hear this. For several minutes there was only silence. Elena began to worry that they had arrived too late. Then the communication station came alive with a signal from the planet. The voice that answered was old and tired, but filled with emotion. This is Dr. Zeftal of the Villani Research Council. You came. After all these years, you actually came. Elena felt tears in her eyes as she listened to the translation. The alien scientist sounded like she could not believe what was happening. Dr. Zeftal, this is Commander Elena Vasquez of the Human Terran Defense Coalition, Elena said. We have 3 ships and 15,000 people ready to help. What is your current situation? We have perhaps 1 year before the planet becomes too hot for us to survive, Zeftal replied. Maybe less. The coastal cities are already underwater. We have moved 800 million people to the highland areas, but we are running out of space and food. Dr. Chun and her team worked to establish better communications with the planet. Soon they had a clear video link with the Villani research station. Dr. Zeftal appeared on the screen. And Elena was shocked by what she saw. The Vellani scientist was much older than she had appeared in the messages sent 15 years ago. Her green skin was pale and marked with stress patterns. Her large eyes showed exhaustion and hope in equal measure. Behind her, Elena could see other Vellani working at strange biocomputers that seemed to be made from living plants. "Dr. Zefto, you look different from your earlier messages," Dr. Chun said gently. 15 years have passed since we sent our first call for help, Zeftal explained. I am old now, but I have stayed alive to see if anyone would answer. Many of my colleagues said no one would come. I am so happy they were wrong. Captain Rex Morrison, the chief engineer, joined the conversation. He had spent years studying Vellani technology and had questions about their situation. Dr. Zefto, we have studied the data you sent about the crystal parasites in your star. Can you tell us what you have learned since then? Zeftal called another Vellani scientist to the screen. This was Dr. Kestai, who Elena remembered from the earlier messages. He was now much older too, but still worked on understanding the star parasites. The crystals have grown much larger, Kestai explained. We have discovered they are not natural. They are weapons created by an ancient race that we call the Harvesters. These creatures use the crystals to destroy stars and prepare planets for their own kind of life. Where are the Harvesters now? Asked Captain Morrison. Gone, Kestai replied. We think they destroyed themselves millions of years ago, but their weapons remain. We have detected similar crystal infections in 37 other star systems. All of those stars have gone dark. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. This was bigger than just saving one planet. There was an ancient weapon system that was still destroying star systems across the galaxy. Dr. Lisa Park, the chief medical officer, asked about the Vellani people themselves. Dr. Zeftal, we need to understand your biology better. If we evacuate your people, can they survive on human ships and human worlds? We have been studying this question for years, Zeftal replied. Our people can adapt to different environments, but we need specific conditions to remain healthy. We have developed medical treatments that might help, but we have never tested them. Dr. Park worked with her team to establish a medical link with the Vellani doctors. As they shared information, she made a surprising discovery. Commander, Dr. Park reported privately to Elena. The Vellani biology is more adaptable than they realize. With the right medical treatment, I think they could survive on many of our frontier worlds. But there is a problem. What kind of problem? Elena asked. We can only carry about 200,000 people in our ships, Dr. Park explained. Even if we use every available space, we cannot evacuate 800 million Vellani. We need more ships, or we need to find another solution. Elena studied the data about the dying planet. The Vellani had less than a year before their world became uninhabitable. It would take years for more ships to arrive from Earth, even if they left immediately. Dr. Chun asked Dr. Zeftal about their own ships, Elena ordered. Can they build evacuation vessels? Dr. Chun asked the question, and Zeftal looked sad. We have tried, but our bioships are not designed for long space travel with so many people. We can build ships that carry 50,000 people for short distances, but not across the galaxy. Captain Morrison had been studying the technical data from the planet. He suddenly looked up with excitement. Commander, I have an idea, he said. The Vellani biotechnology is amazing. Their ships are grown, not built. What if we combine their bioships with our engineering? We could create hybrid vessels that are bigger and stronger than either of our technologies could make alone. Elena felt hope for the first time since arriving at the system. How long would that take? If we worked together, maybe 6 months to build prototype ships. But we would need to work on the planet's surface, and we would need the Vellani to share all their bioship technology. Elena looked at the image of Dr. Zeftal on the screen. The old scientist was listening to the translation of their conversation. "Dr. Zeftal, we want to help all of your people, not just some of them," Elena said. "But we need to work together. We need to combine human and Villani technology to build ships that can save everyone. Are you willing to share your most advanced science with us?" Zeftal smiled for the first time in the conversation. "Commander Vasquez, we have been waiting 15 years for someone to help us. Yes, we will share everything we know. When do we start?" Captain Jake Rodriguez stepped off the shuttle and onto the surface of the Villani homeworld for the first time. The air was hot and humid, much warmer than Earth. The sky had an orange tint from the dying star overhead. In the distance he could see the massive biocities of the Villani, their tree-like structures stretching high into the sky. Jake was known throughout the human fleet as Hellhound because of his work on dangerous frontier worlds. For 10 years he had helped humans settle on planets that most people thought were too hostile for life. Worlds with crushing gravity, poisonous air, and deadly storms. But those worlds had taught him something important about survival. "The weather readings are getting worse," reported Dr. Park as she joined Jake outside the shuttle. "The temperature has risen 3 degrees just since we arrived last month." Jake nodded and looked around at the refugee camps that stretched as far as he could see. Millions of Villani lived in temporary shelters made from their biotechnology. The shelters looked like large flowers or mushrooms, grown from modified plants that could provide housing quickly. "How are the people holding up?" Jake asked. "Better than expected," Dr. Park replied. "The Villani are very good at adapting to difficult situations, but they are running out of food and clean water. The rising seas have destroyed much of their farmland." Jake and Dr. Park walked toward the main research facility where Captain Morrison was working with Villani scientists. The building was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It was grown from a single enormous tree, with rooms and laboratories carved into the living wood. Bioluminescent plants provided light, and the walls seemed to pulse gently with life inside. They found Morrison standing next to a strange machine that looked like a cross between a computer and a garden. Villani biotechnology was based on modified living organisms rather than metal and electronics. The computers were actually specially grown plants that could process information. "Jake, you need to see this," Morrison said excitedly. "The Villani have shown me how their bioships work. They do not build ships like we do. They grow them." Dr. Kestai, the Villani scientist, gestured to a model on the biocomputer. "We start with a seed that contains the genetic code for the entire ship. We plant it in a special growth medium, and over several months, the ship grows like a tree. The hull is made of living wood that is stronger than metal. The life support systems are plants that clean the air and water." Jake studied the model. The Villani ships were beautiful, with smooth organic curves and surfaces that seemed to breathe. But they were also small compared to human ships. "The problem is size," Morrison explained. "The largest bioship the Villani can grow carries about 50,000 people. Even if we built 100 of them, we could only evacuate 5 million. Villani, we need something much bigger. What if we do not make the ships bigger?" Jake suggested, "What if we make them better?" The others looked at him with confusion. Jake had been thinking about this problem for weeks, and he had an idea that came from his experience on frontier worlds. "On the colony worlds, we do not try to make perfect conditions for humans," Jake explained. "Instead, we help humans adapt to the conditions we find. What if we help the Villani adapt to live on human worlds?" Dr. Park looked interested. "I have been studying Villani biology with their doctors. Their people are more adaptable than they realize. With the right medical treatments, they could survive on many different types of planets." Dr. Kestai seemed uncertain. "Our people have lived on this world for millions of years. We need specific plants for food, particular atmospheric conditions for breathing, the energy patterns of our star for health. What if we could recreate those conditions? Jake asked. Not on ships, but on planets, human planets. Jake pulled up a holographic map showing human space. Dozens of star systems appeared, each with several planets marked in different colors. Humans have been settling worlds for over a century, Jake explained. We have learned to live on planets that other species would consider impossible. High-gravity worlds, planets with thin atmospheres, worlds where the temperature changes by 50 degrees between day and night. He pointed to several planets marked in red. These are what we call Deathworlds. Planets that are so hostile that only the toughest humans can live there. But they are also empty. We could build new homes for the Villani on these worlds. Dr. Kestai looked at the data about the human frontier worlds. These planets seem very dangerous. The gravity is too strong. The atmosphere is wrong. The temperatures are extreme. Yes, they are dangerous for humans too, Jake admitted. But we have learned to survive there. We use technology to create safe zones. We modify our bodies to handle the conditions. We build cities that protect us from the environment. Morrison was studying the technical data. Jake might be onto something. If we combine Villani biotechnology with human engineering, we could create habitats that work on frontier worlds. Villani biodomes could create perfect growing conditions for their food plants. Human atmospheric processors could adjust the air composition. Dr. Park added her own thoughts. I have been working with Villani doctors on genetic therapy. We could help Villani bodies adapt to higher gravity and different atmospheric pressure. The treatments would be much easier than trying to terraform entire planets. Jake pulled up detailed information about 17 different human frontier worlds. These planets could support large Villani populations with the right preparation. Some of them have conditions that are actually better for Villani biology than for humans. Dr. Kestai studied the data for a long time. Finally, he said, this could work. Our biocities could grow on many of these worlds. Our plants could adapt to different soil and atmospheric conditions. But it would require cooperation between our peoples for many years. That is exactly what we want, Jake replied. Humans are good at surviving in hostile environments. Villani are good at working with living systems. Together, we could create something neither of our species could achieve alone. Morrison was already sketching plans. We could build hybrid transport ships that combine the best of both technologies. Villani biohulls that can repair themselves. Human engines that can travel between stars. Life support systems that use both. Our technologies. How long would it take? Dr. Park asked. To build the ships? 6 months, Morrison replied. To prepare the frontier worlds for Villani settlement. Maybe 2 years. But we could start moving people immediately to the worlds that are already suitable. Jake felt excitement building as the plan took shape. We need to contact Earth immediately. This is not just about evacuating the Villani. This is about creating a new model for cooperation between species. Dr. Kestai looked hopeful for the first time since the humans had arrived. You would really share your worlds with us? Even though we have nothing to offer in return? Jake laughed. Dr. Kestai, you have biotechnology that could revolutionize human agriculture and medicine. Your people understand living systems in ways that humans never could. This is not charity. This is partnership. Commander Vasquez entered the laboratory just as they were finalizing the plans. She had been meeting with Villani leaders about the logistics of evacuation. Commander, we have a solution, Jake reported. But it is bigger than just saving the Villani. We are talking about fundamentally changing how humans and aliens work together. Elena studied the plans they had developed. The scope was enormous. It would require cooperation between dozens of human worlds and the commitment of massive resources. But it would also save 800 million lives, and create the first true partnership between humans and an alien species. How soon can we start? She asked. Immediately, Jake replied. But we need authorization from Earth to proceed. This goes far beyond our original mission parameters. Elena smiled. Jake, I have been in contact with Earth throughout our stay here. When the government learned about the Villani situation, they gave me broad authority to do whatever is necessary to help. The president himself said that saving an entire civilization is worth any cost. Then we begin tomorrow, Jake said. Welcome to the future of human-alien cooperation. Commander Elena Vasquez stood in the communications center of the Indomitable as alarms blared throughout the ship. The sensors showed that the Villani star was becoming unstable much faster than predicted. They had weeks, not months, before the planet became uninhabitable. The crystal parasites are spreading rapidly, reported Captain Morrison from his station. The star's core temperature is dropping, but the surface is having massive solar flares. The planet's atmosphere is starting to burn off. Elena looked at the evacuation schedule on her screen. Even with the hybrid bioships they had built with Villani technology, they could only evacuate 200,000 people in the next few weeks. That left 600 million Villani still on the dying planet. How many ships do we have ready? She asked. 12 hybrid ships completed, 8 more in final stages, Morrison replied. Each one can carry about 20,000 people safely to human space. Elena made a decision that would define the rest of her career. She activated the emergency communications array and sent a message directly to Earth, copying every human colony and military base in known space. This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the Villani Relief Mission, she said into the transmitter. We have discovered an alien civilization facing extinction. 800 million innocent people will die in the next few weeks unless we act immediately. I am requesting emergency assistance from every human ship, station, and colony. We need vessels, supplies, and volunteers for the largest evacuation in galactic history. Dr. Sarah Chen, who was working with Villani linguists in the next room, heard the transmission and came running to the communications center. Elena, what are you doing? She asked. Earth Command did not authorize you to make that kind of request. Dr. Chen, sometimes you have to do what is right instead of what is authorized, Elena replied. We are about to watch an entire civilization die. That is not acceptable. Over the next few hours, Elena's emergency broadcast reached every corner of human space. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Mining ships from the asteroid belt changed course toward the Villani system. Passenger liners from the outer colonies volunteered to carry refugees. Even private cargo ships offered their help. Captain Jake Rodriguez was on the planet's surface, working with Villani engineers to modify their bioships for long-distance travel. The heat was getting worse every day, and many of the coastal refugee camps had to be evacuated to higher ground. Jake, we have a problem, reported Dr. Park over the radio. The bioships are amazing, but they are too slow for emergency evacuation. They need time to grow and adapt. We need them to work faster. Jake was working inside a Villani bioship construction facility. The building itself was alive, with walls made of modified tree bark and floors that felt soft under his feet. Villani. Workers moved around him, tending to ship seeds that were growing into full vessels. What if we do not wait for them to grow naturally? Jake suggested to Dr. Kestai, who was supervising the construction. Human ships are built in pieces and assembled quickly. Can we do something similar with bioships? Dr. Kestai looked thoughtful. We have never tried to force grow a ship, but theoretically, it is possible. We would need massive amounts of nutrients and energy to speed up the growth process. We have both, Jake replied. Human fusion reactors can provide the energy, and we brought industrial replicators that can create any nutrients you need. They worked for 3 days straight, combining human industrial technology with Vellani bioengineering. The result was revolutionary. Instead of taking months to grow, the hybrid bioships could be completed in just 5 days. Better yet, they were larger and stronger than anything either species had built before. Meanwhile, help was arriving from across human space. The first ships reached the Vellani system just as the evacuation was beginning. Captain Maria Santos arrived with a converted cargo ship that could carry 50,000 refugees. Admiral Thompson brought a military transport fleet with room for 200,000 people. But the most surprising help came from an unexpected source. Dr. Chun received a transmission from Earth that made her call Elena to the communication center immediately. "Elena, you need to see this," Dr. Chun said. "The message is from the Global Colonial Authority." The screen showed Director Williams, the head of Human Colonial Operations. Behind him, Elena could see the bustling activity of Earth's largest spaceport. "Commander Vasquez, your emergency request has been approved at the highest levels," Director Williams said. "We are launching Operation Sanctuary, the largest humanitarian mission in human history. 350 ships are being dispatched to your location, including 20 of our largest colony ships." Elena felt tears in her eyes. How many people can the colony ships carry? "Each colony ship can transport 1 million people." Williams replied, "But Commander, this operation goes beyond simple evacuation. The Colonial Authority has approved the establishment of 17 new joint human Vellani colonies. We are not just saving the Vellani people. We are welcoming them as permanent partners in human space." The evacuation became a massive coordinated effort involving hundreds of ships and thousands of volunteers. Human engineers worked alongside Vellani biotechnicians to convert cargo holds into comfortable living spaces. Vellani doctors shared their medical knowledge with human physicians to ensure the refugees stayed healthy during the long journey. Captain Morrison found himself working with Dr. Kestai on an even more ambitious project. They were building massive bioarc ships, living vessels that could support millions of people for years of space travel. "These ships are incredible," Morrison said as he watched a bioarc take shape. "They do not just carry people. They create entire ecosystems. The Vellani will not just survive the journey, they will thrive." Dr. Zeftel, despite her advanced age, insisted on supervising the final evacuation operations. She had lived to see her people's salvation, and she was determined to ensure that every Vellani made it to safety. "Dr. Zeftal, you should be on one of the first ships," Dr. Chun told her. "You have done enough." The old scientist smiled. "Dr. Chun, I sent the first message asking for help. I will send the last message saying that help has arrived. This is my responsibility." As the Vellani star grew more unstable, the evacuation entered its final phase. The hybrid bioships and human vessels worked around the clock, ferrying people from the dying world to the safety of the rescue fleet. Jake Rodriguez led the final ground teams, making sure that no one was left behind. Even as the planet's surface temperature reached dangerous levels, human and Vellani teams worked together to evacuate the most remote settlements. "This is the last transport from the northern continent," Jake reported as his ship lifted off from a Vellani settlement. "All population centers have been evacuated." Elena watched from the Indomitable as the last ships left the planet's surface. Behind them, the Vellani homeworld was becoming uninhabitable. The orange star flickered with unstable energy, and the planet's atmosphere glowed with heat. Dr. Zeftel's final transmission came just as the rescue fleet prepared to leave the system. Her image appeared on screens throughout the human and Vellani ships. "To the humans who heard our call and came to help," she said, her voice strong despite her age. "You have shown us that the universe contains more kindness than we ever dared to hope. You have saved not just our lives, but our future. We will never forget that when our world died, the Deathworlders reached back. As the rescue fleet jumped to warp speed, carrying 780 million Villani to new homes across human space, Elena made a final log entry. Mission complete. All Villani evacuated successfully, beginning transit to new colony worlds. Note for the record, today, humanity proved that we do not just explore the galaxy. We protect it. 20 years later, human Villani colonies had become some of the most successful settlements in known space. Villani biotechnology had revolutionized human agriculture and medicine, while human engineering had allowed Villani cities to flourish on worlds they never could have imagined. And when the next distress call came from another dying civilization, the joint human Villani rescue fleet was ready. The ship was named Zeftal's Promise, and its mission was simple. Deathworlders never abandon those in need. Commander Elena Vasquez stood in the communications center of the Indomitable as alarms blared throughout the ship. The sensors showed that the Villani star was becoming unstable much faster than predicted. They had weeks, not months, before the planet became uninhabitable. "The crystal parasites are spreading rapidly," reported Captain Morrison from his station. "The star's core temperature is dropping, but the surface is having massive solar flares. The planet's atmosphere is starting to burn off." Elena looked at the evacuation schedule on her screen. Even with the hybrid bioships they had built with Villani technology, they could only evacuate 200,000 people in the next few weeks. That left 600 million Villani still on the dying planet. "How many ships do we have ready?" she asked. 12 hybrid ships completed, 8 more in final stages, Morrison replied. "Each one can carry about 20,000 people safely to human space." Elena made a decision that would define the rest of her career. She activated the emergency communications array and sent a message directly to Earth, copying every human colony and military base in known space. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the Villani Relief Mission," she said into the transmitter. "We have discovered an alien civilization facing extinction. 800 million innocent people will die in the next few weeks unless we act immediately. I am requesting emergency assistance from every human ship, station, and colony. We need vessels, supplies, and volunteers for the largest evacuation in galactic history." Dr. Sarah Chun, who was working with Villani linguists in the next room, heard the transmission and came running to the communication center. "Elena, what are you doing?" she asked. "Earth Command did not authorize you to make that kind of request." "Dr. Chun, sometimes you have to do what is right instead of what is authorized," Elena replied. "We are about to watch an entire civilization die. That is not acceptable." Over the next few hours, Elena's emergency broadcast reached every corner of human space. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Mining ships from the asteroid belt changed course toward the Villani system. Passenger liners from the outer colonies volunteered to carry refugees. Even private cargo ships offered their help. Captain Jake Rodriguez was on the planet's surface, working with Villani engineers to modify their bioships for long-distance travel. The heat was getting worse every day, and many of the coastal refugee camps had to be evacuated to higher ground. "Jake, we have a problem," reported Dr. Park over the radio. "The bioships are amazing, but they are too slow for emergency evacuation. They need time to grow and adapt. We need them to work faster." Jake was working inside a Villani bioship construction facility. The building itself was alive, with walls made of modified tree bark and floors that felt soft under his feet. Villani. Workers moved around him, tending to ship seeds that were growing into full vessels. "What if we do not wait for them to grow naturally?" Jake suggested to Dr. Kestai, who was supervising the construction. "Human ships are built in pieces and assembled quickly. Can we do something similar with bioships?" Dr. Kestai looked thoughtful. "We have never tried to force grow a ship, but theoretically it is possible. We would need massive amounts of nutrients and energy to speed up the growth process. We have both, Jake replied. Human fusion reactors can provide the energy, and we brought industrial replicators that can create any nutrients you need. They worked for 3 days straight, combining human industrial technology with Vellani bioengineering. The result was revolutionary. Instead of taking months to grow, the hybrid bioships could be completed in just 5 days. Better yet, they were larger and stronger than anything either species had built before. Meanwhile, help was arriving from across human space. The first ships reached the Vellani system just as the evacuation was beginning. Captain Maria Santos arrived with a converted cargo ship that could carry 50,000 refugees. Admiral Thompson brought a military transport fleet with room for 200,000 people. But the most surprising help came from an unexpected source. Dr. Chun received a transmission from Earth that made her call Elena to the communication center immediately. "Elena, you need to see this," Dr. Chun said. "The message is from the Global Colonial Authority." The screen showed Director Williams, the head of Human Colonial Operations. Behind him, Elena could see the bustling activity of Earth's largest spaceport. "Commander Vasquez, your emergency request has been approved at the highest levels," Director Williams said. "We are launching Operation Sanctuary, the largest humanitarian mission in human history. 350 ships are being dispatched to your location, including 20 of our largest colony ships." Elena felt tears in her eyes. How many people can the colony ships carry? "Each colony ship can transport 1 million people," Williams replied. "But Commander, this operation goes beyond simple evacuation. The Colonial Authority has approved the establishment of 17 new joint human Vellani colonies. We are not just saving the Vellani people. We are welcoming them as permanent partners in human space." The evacuation became a massive coordinated effort involving hundreds of ships and thousands of volunteers. Human engineers worked alongside Vellani biotechnicians to convert cargo holds into comfortable living spaces. Vellani doctors shared their medical knowledge with human physicians to ensure the refugees stayed healthy during the long journey. Captain Morrison found himself working with Dr. Casti on an even more ambitious project. They were building massive bio-arc ships, living vessels that could support millions of people for years of space travel. "These ships are incredible," Morrison said as he watched a bio-arc take shape. "They do not just carry people. They create entire ecosystems. The Vellani will not just survive the journey. They will thrive." Dr. Zeftal, despite her advanced age, insisted on supervising the final evacuation operations. She had lived to see her people's salvation, and she was determined to ensure that every Vellani made it to safety. "Dr. Zeftal, you should be on one of the first ships," Dr. Chun told her. "You have done enough." The old scientist smiled. "Dr. Chun, I sent the first message asking for help. I will send the last message saying that help has arrived. This is my responsibility." As the Vellani star grew more unstable, the evacuation entered its final phase. The hybrid bioships and human vessels worked around the clock, ferrying people from the dying world to the safety of the rescue fleet. Jake Rodriguez led the final ground teams, making sure that no one was left behind. Even as the planet's surface temperature reached dangerous levels, human and Vellani teams worked together to evacuate the most remote settlements. "This is the last transport from the northern continent," Jake reported as his ship lifted off from a Vellani settlement. "All population centers have been evacuated." Elena watched from the Indomitable as the last ships left the planet's surface. Behind them, the Vellani homeworld was becoming uninhabitable. The orange star flickered with unstable energy, and the planet's atmosphere glowed with heat. Dr. Zeftal's final transmission came just as the rescue fleet prepared to leave the system. Her image appeared on screens throughout the human and Villani ships. To the humans who heard our call and came to help, she said, her voice strong despite her age. You have shown us that the universe contains more kindness than we ever dared to hope. You have saved not just our lives, but our future. We will never forget that when our world died, the Deathworlders reached back. As the rescue fleet jumped to warp speed, carrying 780 million Villani to new homes across human space, Elena made a final log entry. Mission complete. All Villani evacuated successfully. Beginning transit to new colony worlds. Note for the record, today, humanity proved that we do not just explore the galaxy. We protect it. 20 years later, human Villani colonies had become some of the most successful settlements in known space. Villani biotechnology had revolutionized human agriculture and medicine, while human engineering had allowed Villani cities to flourish on worlds they never could have imagined. Dr. Kestai, now an old scientist himself, stood on the observation deck of New Villani Prime, a joint colony world where humans and Villani worked together. The bio-cities reached toward the sky while human industrial complexes provided power and manufacturing. Children of both species played together in the parks. The humans kept their promise, he said to his human colleague, Dr. Martinez, who had become his closest friend over the years. They saved us all. No, Dr. Martinez replied. We saved each other. Your people gave us biotechnology that let us grow food on worlds we could never farm before. Your medical knowledge helped us cure diseases we had fought for centuries. This is partnership, not charity. A message came through the communication system. Both scientists hurried to the command center, where the latest deep space sensors were monitored. A young human technician was staring at his screen with excitement. What is it? Asked Dr. Kestai. We are receiving a distress call, the technician replied. A star system 40 light years away. The signal is weak, but it sounds like another civilization asking for help. Dr. Martinez and Dr. Kesta looked at each other and smiled. They both knew what would happen next. Within hours, the news had spread across the Human Villani Alliance. Ambassador Zefti stood in the center of the Great Hall on Nexus Prime. Her forearms shook as she spoke to the gathered aliens from across the galaxy. The Galactic Council chamber was huge, with floating seats arranged in circles around her. Each seat held a different kind of alien being. Please, Zefti said, her voice breaking. My people are dying. The Veltar looked like tall, thin deer with blue skin and large black eyes. They had no weapons, no armies, no way to fight. For thousands of years, they had lived in peace on their green world. They grew their cities like plants and healed any creature that came to them for help. Now the Quexan swarm was destroying everything. In the floating seats above, the powerful aliens of the galaxy whispered to each other. The Zethkari looked like living crystals that glowed with inner light. The Nethrim were clouds of gas held together by energy fields. The Merlots swam in tanks of water, their fish-like bodies moving slowly. Council President Varthak, a massive rock creature, hit his stone gavel 3 times. The Council has heard your request, Ambassador Zefti. We understand your situation is difficult. Difficult? Zefti's voice rose higher. The swarm has taken 4 of our moons. They are eating our people alive. They turn our children into food for their young. This is not difficult. This is the end of everything we are. She pulled out a small device and pressed a button. Above her head, images appeared in the air. The pictures showed the Crexon at work. The aliens looked like giant insects with black shells and too many teeth. They moved in perfect groups like ants, but they were smart and cruel. The images showed Veltar cities burning. They showed the beautiful tree houses falling down. They showed Veltar people running and screaming as the insect aliens chased them. "We cannot fight them," Zefti said. "Our bodies cannot hurt other living things. It is not in our nature. When we try to hold weapons, our hands shake. When we try to think violent thoughts, our minds shut down. We are healers, not killers." She fell to her knees. "But you can fight. You have armies and ships and weapons. Please help us." The council members looked at each other. They had been talking about this problem for months. The Crexon swarm was dangerous, but they were far away from the important worlds. Ambassador Kethral of the Zefkari Empire spoke first. His crystal body flashed with cold blue light. "The Empire sympathizes with your plight. However, our forces are needed to protect our own borders. We cannot risk our people for one small world." The Nethrim representative, a swirling cloud of orange gas, spoke next. "Our military assets are spread thin across 17 sectors. A deployment to your region would leave our own worlds vulnerable." One by one, the major powers gave their excuses. They were too busy, too far away, too worried about their own problems. Some offered to send supplies or medical aid, but no one would send soldiers out. In the observer section, a human woman sat quietly. Ambassador Sarah Chun wore a simple black suit and took notes on an old-fashioned paper notebook. Earth had only joined the Galactic Council 3 months ago. Humans were still learning how things worked. The other aliens thought humans were interesting, but not important. Earth was what they called a Class 12 death world. Most aliens could not even visit Earth without dying. The air was poisonous to some species. The gravity was too strong for others. The temperature changes would kill most galactic races in hours. Humans had evolved on a planet that was trying to kill them every day. This made them tough, but also primitive in the eyes of the galaxy. Earth had no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no anti-gravity ships. Human technology looked crude and basic. President Vo Thak spoke again. "Ambassador Zefti, the Council understands your pain, but we must consider the greater good. The Crexon swarm has never attacked the core worlds. This appears to be an isolated incident." "Isolated?" Zefti stood up, her legs shaking. "They have consumed 12 worlds in the outer rim. 12. Each time you called it isolated. Each time you said it would not spread. How many more worlds must die before you act?" The president's stone face showed no emotion. "The Council will continue to monitor the situation. We encourage all members to provide humanitarian aid to refugee populations." Zefti stared at him. "Humanitarian aid? In 3 days, there will be no Veltar left to aid. In a week, the swarm will finish building their breeding facilities on our worlds. In a month, they will have enough new warriors to attack the next system." She looked around the chamber. "Who will be next? Will it still be isolated when they reach your worlds?" The council members shifted in their seats. Some looked uncomfortable, but no one changed their minds. "Then this council is useless," Zefti said. "My people will die because you are cowards. Ambassador!" President Vorthak's voice boomed. "You will show respect in this chamber." That was when Sarah Chun stood up. The movement was so quiet that most aliens did not notice at first. Chun was small compared to most galactic species. She looked fragile, with her soft skin and thin bones. But something about the way she moved made others pay attention. "Excuse me," Chun said in clear, simple words. "I request permission to address the Council." President Vorthak looked surprised. "The delegate from Earth wishes to speak. This is unusual. Earth is still in probationary status." "Yes, sir, I understand. But I have something to say about this situation. The president looked. Around the chamber, some aliens laughed quietly. Others looked curious. Very well. The council recognizes the delegate from Earth. Chun walked to the center of the chamber, next to Zefti. The Veltar woman looked down at her with hope in her large black eyes. Thank you, President Vorthek, Chun said. I will be brief. The United Nations of Earth formally offers military assistance to the Veltar Collective. The chamber went silent, then the laughter started. It began with a few aliens and spread through the room. The idea of primitive humans fighting the terrible Krexan swarm seemed like a joke. President Vorthek held up his hand for quiet. Ambassador Chun, Earth's intentions are admirable. However, your species lacks the technology and experience. For galactic warfare, your weapons are chemical-based. Your ships use primitive thrust systems. Your people have no experience with alien combat. Chun nodded. That is true, sir. We are new to galactic society. Our technology is different from yours. But we have been fighting since we learned to walk. She paused and looked around the chamber. President Vorthek, you say we lack experience with alien combat. But we have experience with something else. We know how to survive when everything wants to kill us. We know how to fight when we are outnumbered. We know how to win when everyone says we cannot. The laughter stopped. Give us 3 days, Chun said. 3 standard galactic days. If we cannot help the Veltar, then nothing has changed. If we can help them, then maybe this council will learn something new. President Vorthek stared at her. 3 days? Ambassador, the Krexan swarm has defeated forces 10 times larger than anything Earth could deploy. What makes you think your primitive world can succeed where the galaxy's greatest powers have failed? Sarah Chun smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Because, President Vorthek, we are not trying to be civilized. The emergency meeting began 6 hours after Sarah Chun returned to Earth. In rooms across the planet, world leaders gathered around screens that connected them all. The President of the United States sat next to the Prime Minister of India. The Chancellor of Germany spoke quietly with the President of Brazil. Every major nation was here. Ladies and gentlemen, said UN Secretary General Maria Santos, we have made a promise to help the Veltar people. Now we must decide if we can keep that promise. General Patricia Hayes, the head of Earth Space Command, stood up. She was a tall woman with gray hair and scars on her hands from the resource wars. The situation is clear. The Krexan swarm has 40,000 warriors. On Veltar Prime, their ships are big and heavily armed. They fight like insects with perfect coordination. She pressed a button and images filled the screens. The pictures showed the Krexan warriors. They were 8 feet tall with black shells covering their bodies. Their arms ended in sharp claws. Their mouths had rows of teeth like saw blades. They are strong and fast, Hayes continued. Their shells can stop most energy weapons. They feel no fear and never retreat. In the past 50 years, they have destroyed 23 worlds. The French president leaned forward. General, how many soldiers can we send? 12,000. Combat troops, another 3,000 support personnel. 6 carrier ships and 18 escort vessels. 12,000 against 40,000. The Japanese Prime Minister shook his head. The numbers are not good, Hayes smiled. Prime Minister, you are thinking like a civilized person. The Krexan think like civilized people too. They believe that bigger numbers always win. They believe that frontal attacks are the only way to fight. They have never met humans. In Moscow, President Volkov spoke up. What do you mean, General? The Krexan have fought many species. The Zefkari use energy shields and plasma cannons. The Nethrim fight with gas clouds and lightning. The Merlots attack with sonic weapons. All of them fight fair. All of them follow rules of war. Hayes walked to the window and looked up at the sky. Humans do not fight fair. We cheat, we lie, we hide. We use the environment as a weapon. We attack when the enemy is sleeping. We poison their water and burn their food. The British Prime Minister looked uncomfortable. General, those tactics sound primitive? Hayes turned back to the screen. Exactly. The galaxy thinks we are primitive because we use chemical explosives and metal bullets. They think we are weak because we have no energy shields. They are wrong. On the screen, she showed pictures of human weapons. Rifles that fired armor-piercing rounds. Grenades that exploded into thousands of metal fragments. Flamethrowers that could melt steel. Mines that could destroy tanks. The Crexon shells can stop energy weapons, but they were never designed to stop bullets moving at 3,000 feet per second. Their coordination depends on chemical signals that we can disrupt with our own chemicals. They have never fought an enemy that uses the environment against them. Secretary General Santos nodded. What do you need, General? Everything, Hayes said. Every weapon we have, every dirty trick we know. Every advantage that comes from being born on a world that hates us. The next 24 hours changed Earth forever. In factories across the planet, machines stopped making cars and started making ammunition. Companies that built computers began building targeting systems. Scientists who studied diseases started developing chemical weapons. At Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, massive cargo ships landed every hour. Workers loaded them with supplies that no other species in the galaxy used. Barbed wire to slow down enemy advances. Landmines to control movement. Napalm to clear forests. Poison gas to disrupt communications. The ships also carried stranger things. Speakers that could play sounds loud enough to cause pain. Lights that flashed in patterns designed to cause seizures. Chemicals that smelled so bad they made enemies vomit. Every dirty trick that humans had ever used in war. Colonel Marcus Webb watched the loading from the command center. He was 50 years old and had fought in 7 different wars. His face was covered with scars from the Australian drop bear attacks. His left arm was artificial, replaced after the Amazon conflict. "Sir," said Lieutenant Rodriguez, his aide, "the Veltar representative wants to speak with you." Webb turned to see Ambassador Zefti standing in the doorway. The tall blue alien looked around the command center with wide eyes. She had never seen anything like it. Human military bases were not like galactic facilities. There were no smooth walls or soft lighting. Everything was hard metal and sharp edges. The air smelled of oil and gunpowder. Soldiers moved with quick, efficient steps. "Ambassador," Webb said, "what can I do for you?" Zefti stared at the screens, showing weapons being loaded. "Colonel Webb, I must ask you something. Are humans truly willing to fight for people they barely know?" Webb looked at her for a long moment. "Ambassador, let me tell you about humans. We evolved on a planet where everything wanted to eat us. The weather tried to kill us. The animals hunted us. The plants were poisonous. Even the water could make us sick." He pointed to the screens. "But we survived. We learned to make tools. We learned to work together. We learned that sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to become something your enemies fear." Zefti's large eyes filled with tears. "But why help us? We have nothing to offer you. We cannot fight. We cannot build weapons. We are useless in war." "You are healers," Webb said simply. "In our wars, many of our people get hurt. Your ability to heal without causing pain is not useless. It is precious." He walked to another screen that showed the Crexon attacking a Veltar city. "And there is something else. Humans do not like bullies. We do not like it when big, strong creatures pick on small, weak ones. It makes us angry." Webb's voice became harder. "When humans get angry, we do not just fight. We make sure the bully never bothers anyone again. On the screen, a news reporter was explaining the human response to the rest of the galaxy. Most aliens thought Earth was making a mistake. The Crexan were too strong, too many, too experienced, but some aliens were watching very carefully. In the crystal cities of the Zethkari Empire, military leaders studied human weapons with interest. In the gas clouds of the Nethrim, scientists analyzed human tactical manuals. In the water cities of the Merlos, admirals reviewed human naval strategies. They were beginning to understand that Earth's classification as a death world meant more than just environmental danger. It meant that anything that survived there would be dangerous. TOO Dr. Elena Vasquez finished her briefing to the assault teams. She was a small woman with dark hair and quick eyes. She had spent her life studying alien biology, but now her knowledge would be used for war. The Crexan communicate through pheromones, she explained to the soldiers, chemical signals that travel through the air. If we can disrupt these signals, we can break their coordination. She held up a small device. This releases compounds that will confuse their chemical communication. They will not be able to work together effectively. Sergeant Kim raised his hand. Doctor, what happens to isolated Crexan? They become individuals, Vasquez said. Without the hive mind controlling them, they have to think for themselves. And they have no experience thinking as individuals. The soldiers smiled. An enemy that could not think clearly was an enemy that could be defeated. At Cape Canaveral, the first human warships prepared for departure. They did not look like the elegant vessels of other species. Human ships were built like hammers, designed to survive impacts and keep fighting. Admiral Lisa Park stood on the bridge of the UN's Defiance. Through the windows, she could see Earth, turning slowly below them. Somewhere out there in the galaxy, innocent people were dying while politicians argued. "Admiral," said her communications officer, "we are receiving a message from the Galactic Council. They want to know our estimated time of arrival." Park smiled. "Tell them we will arrive in time to save the Veltar. And tell them that after we do, the galaxy will understand what humans can accomplish when we stop being civilized." The ships left Earth's orbit in formation, carrying 15,000 of humanity's finest warriors toward their first galactic war. Behind them, Earth's factories continued working, preparing for whatever would come next. In the galaxy, word spread quickly. The humans were coming. The primitive Deathworlders were actually going to fight the Crexan swarm. Most aliens thought it would be a short, tragic battle. They were wrong about the tragic part. The human fleet arrived at the edge of the Veltar system 3 days later. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the UN's Defiance and watched the destruction through her telescopes. The beautiful blue-green world of Veltar Prime was covered in smoke. Strange black structures grew from the surface like diseased tumors. "Admiral," said Commander Torres, her second in command, "we are receiving a distress signal from a Veltar defense ship." On the main screen, a frightened Veltar captain appeared. His blue skin was pale with fear. Behind him, his ship's bridge was filled with smoke and sparks. "Unknown vessels," the captain said. "Please stay away. The swarm ships are too powerful. We cannot protect you." Park leaned forward. "Captain, this is Admiral Park of the Earth Defense Fleet. We are here to help." The Veltar captain's eyes went wide. "Earth, but you are so far away. And your ships ... He looked at the human vessels with confusion. "They are so small." It was true. The human ships looked tiny next to the massive Veltar bioships. The Veltar grew their vessels like living things, beautiful and graceful. Human ships were built from metal and concrete, ugly but strong. "Captain," Park said, "we may be small, but we know how to fight. Can you tell us where the Crix are strongest?" "They have taken the moon of Veltar Beta," the captain replied. "That is where they built their main hive. Thousands of warriors are there, preparing to breed more soldiers." Park nodded. "Understood. We will handle the moon. You focus on protecting your people." The Veltar captain looked doubtful. "Admiral, with respect, the Crexon have 40,000 warriors on that moon. You have only a few ships." "Captain," Park said with a smile, "you have never seen humans fight." The first contact between humans and Crexon happened 20 minutes later. A swarm of 50 Crexon fighters detected the human patrol ship, Uns Tenacious, and moved to attack. The insect-like ships flew in perfect formation, just as they always did. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Walsh watched them approach on her screens. The Crexon ships were sleek and fast, designed for overwhelming smaller forces with superior numbers. "All hands, prepare for contact," Walsh announced. "Remember your training. These bugs have never seen human weapons before." The Crexon fighters opened fire first. Streams of green energy shot toward the Tenacious. The alien pilots expected to see energy shields flare up and then collapse under their combined assault. That was how every other species defended themselves. Instead, the human ship simply moved out of the way. The Tenacious rolled and twisted like a fighter plane in atmosphere. Human ships were designed to be agile because humans had learned to fight in 3 dimensions. They had been building aircraft for over a century before they reached space that the Crexan pilots were confused. Their energy weapons were designed to break through shields, not to hit moving targets. They tried to adjust their formation, but the human ship kept changing direction in ways that made no sense. Then the Tenacious fired back. Instead of energy beams, the human ship shot clouds of metal pellets moving at incredible speeds. The tungsten projectiles tore through the Crexon formation like bullets through paper. In seconds, 20 alien fighters exploded into pieces. The remaining Crexon tried to swarm the human ship, surrounding it from all sides. This tactic had worked against every other species they had fought. But humans had learned to fight while surrounded. They had developed weapons specifically for this situation. The Tenacious deployed its point defense systems. Hundreds of small guns opened fire in all directions, creating a sphere of deadly metal around the ship. Any Crexon fighter that came too close was shredded instantly. In minutes, the entire Crexon formation was destroyed. Not a single human ship was damaged. Lieutenant Commander Walsh reported back to Admiral Park. "Contact successful, Admiral. 50 enemy fighters destroyed. No damage to our forces." On the command ship, Park's staff looked at each other with satisfaction. Colonel Webb, who was coordinating the ground forces, smiled grimly. "Admiral," he said, "I think it is time to introduce ourselves properly." The first landing took place on Veltar Beta 6 hours later. The Crexon had built their main hive inside a series of caves on the moon's surface. The tunnels were perfect for their insect-like bodies, but difficult for most other species to navigate. The Crexon Queen Mind was not worried about the small human force. Her warriors had fought many different aliens over the centuries. All of them used the same basic tactics: land troops, advance in formation, fight with energy weapons. She sent 500 warriors to destroy the human landing force. It would be a simple matter of overwhelming them with superior numbers. The Crexon warriors emerged from their tunnels and charged across the rocky surface of the moon. They moved in perfect coordination, their black shells gleaming in the starlight. They had never lost a battle when they outnumbered their enemies. They never reached the human landing zone. The first Crexon warriors stepped on landmines buried in the ground. The explosion sent bodies flying in all directions. The survivors continued forward, following their programming to advance no matter what. They ran into tripwires connected to more explosives. Then they encountered claymore mines that shot thousands of steel balls in all directions. The Crexon had never seen weapons like these before. Those who survived the minefield found themselves facing human soldiers in prepared positions. The humans had built their defensive line in a crater that forced the Crexon to attack uphill. They had set up machine guns with overlapping fields of fire. When the Crexan charged, the humans opened fire. The bullets tore through the alien. Shells like they were made of cardboard. The Crexan had evolved their armor to protect against claws and teeth. Not high-velocity metal projectiles, but the real shock came when the surviving Crexan tried to use their natural weapons. They could spit acid that dissolved most materials. They had claws that could cut through steel. They were stronger and faster than most species. None of it mattered. The humans stayed at a distance and kept shooting. When Crexan warriors got close, the humans used grenades and flamethrowers. When the aliens tried to surround them, the humans fell back to secondary positions. In 30 minutes, 500 Crexan warriors were dead. The humans had lost 3 soldiers. The Queen Mind felt something she had never experienced before. Confusion. Her warriors were the best fighters in the galaxy. They had defeated armies 10 times larger. How were these small, weak humans destroying them so easily? She decided to study the enemy. Using her mental connection to her surviving warriors, she watched the humans work. What she saw disturbed her more than the deaths. The humans were not fighting like civilized beings. They used the environment as a weapon, turning the moon's rocks and craters into traps. They poisoned the air with chemicals that disrupted Crexan communication. They made loud noises that hurt alien hearing. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to enjoy the fighting. Other species fought because they had to. Humans fought like they were born for it. Dr. Vasquez had set up her equipment near the landing zone. She was monitoring Crexan communications, listening to their chemical signals. What she discovered was fascinating. "Colonel Webb," she called over the radio. "The Crexan are having trouble coordinating. Our chemical disruptors are working better than expected." Webb was crouched behind a rock formation, watching the alien tunnels through his binoculars. "How much trouble, Doctor?" "Their warriors are starting to act as individuals instead of a group. Some of them are hesitating before attacking. Others are trying to retreat," Webb smiled. "Outstanding. A confused enemy is a dead enemy." He opened his radio to all units. "Listen up, people. The bugs are losing their group mind. Time to show them what individual human soldiers can do." The next phase of the battle was different. Instead of defending fixed positions, the humans began to hunt. Small teams moved through the tunnels, using night vision and sound detection to find Crexan warriors in the dark. The aliens had never fought an enemy that hunted them. For the first time in their species' history, Crexan warriors experienced fear. Sergeant David Kim led his squad through a narrow tunnel deep inside the hive. They moved silently, using hand signals to communicate. Their weapons were loaded with special ammunition, designed to kill in confined spaces. They found a group of 20 Crexan warriors huddled in a chamber. The aliens were making confused, clicking sounds, trying to re-establish their mental connection to the Queen Mind. Kim's squad struck without warning. Flashbang grenades filled the chamber with blinding light and deafening noise. While the Crexan stumbled around in confusion, the humans shot them with precise, aimed fire. It was over in seconds. As Kim's squad moved deeper into the hive, they left behind small devices that Dr. Vasquez had designed. The machines released more chemicals that would confuse any Crexan who came later. Back on the surface, Admiral Park received reports from all her units. The pattern was the same everywhere. Human forces were systematically destroying Crexan positions with minimal losses. "Admiral," said Commander Torres, "we are receiving a message from the Crexan Queen Mind herself." Park raised an eyebrow. "Really? Put her through." The alien voice that came through the speakers was different from any human had heard before. It sounded like 1,000 insects talking at once. The Queen Mind had lived for 800 years. In all that time, she had never felt what her warriors were experiencing now. Fear was not part of Crexan nature. They were born to fight and die without question. But now, for the first time, Some of her warriors were refusing to attack. She tried to force them through the mental link that connected all Crexon. But the human chemicals in the air made the connection weak and fuzzy. Her perfect control was breaking down. Deep in the hive tunnels, Crexon warriors crouched in dark corners. They made small clicking sounds of distress. When human footsteps echoed in the distance, they backed away instead of charging forward. The humans had done something no enemy had ever done before. They had made the swarm afraid. Colonel Webb studied the tactical maps in his command post. The battle was going better than anyone had expected. Human forces had taken control of 60% of the hive complex. Crexon casualties were enormous while human losses remained light. "Sir," said Lieutenant Rodriguez, "Dr. Vasquez wants to speak with you. She says it's urgent." Webb walked to the science station where Dr. Vasquez was monitoring alien communications. Her equipment showed patterns of light and sound that represented Crexon chemical signals. "Colonel," she said excitedly, "something amazing is happening. The Queen Mind is losing control of individual warriors. Some of them are acting completely on their own." Webb looked at the displays. "Is that good for us?" "Very good. Isolated Crexon have no experience making decisions. They don't know how to plan or adapt. They can only follow basic instincts." She pointed to a screen showing heat signatures in the tunnels. "Look at this. A group of 20 warriors has been sitting in the same chamber for 2 hours. They're just waiting. They don't know what to do without orders from the Queen Mind." Webb smiled grimly. "Doctor, can you locate the Queen Mind herself?" "I think so. The strongest chemical signals are coming from the deepest part of the hive. She's probably in a chamber about half a mile down." "Outstanding." Webb opened his radio. "Sergeant Kim, this is Colonel Webb. Report to command post immediately." 5 minutes later, Sergeant Kim arrived with his squad. They were covered in dust and alien blood, but none of them were seriously injured. Kim's artificial leg, a replacement from the Amazon conflict, sparked slightly from damage. "Sergeant," Webb said, "I have a special mission for you. We're going after the Queen Mind herself." Kim's eyes lit up. "A decapitation strike, sir." "Exactly. Dr. Vasquez will guide you to her location. Take your best people and whatever equipment you need." Kim studied the tunnel maps. "Sir, that's deep territory. We'll be surrounded by thousands of enemies." "Sergeant, those enemies are confused and scared. They've never faced humans before, and they don't know how to handle us. You've been hunting in those tunnels for hours. You know how they think now." Kim nodded. "Yes, sir." "How do we know when we found the right chamber?" Dr. Vasquez handed him a small device. "This will detect the strongest chemical signals. When it starts flashing red, you're close to the Queen Mind." Webb looked at Kim's squad. There were only 8 of them, but they were all veterans. They had fought in the worst conflicts on Earth and survived. "People," Webb said. "This is what we came here to do. The Crexon swarm has terrorized the galaxy for centuries. Today we end that threat. Forever." The squad moved out 30 minutes later. They carried extra ammunition, explosives, and chemical weapons. Their armor was painted black to blend with the tunnel shadows. Each soldier knew this might be a one-way mission. The deeper tunnels were different from the upper levels. The walls were covered with a strange organic material that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air was thick with alien chemicals that made breathing difficult even through their filters. They encountered their first group of confused Crexon warriors after 20 minutes. The aliens were standing in a circle, making clicking sounds at each other. When they saw the humans, they hesitated instead of attacking immediately. Kim's squad used that hesitation. They threw flashbang grenades and opened fire while the aliens were still deciding what to do. The fight was over in seconds. As they went deeper, they found more evidence of the Queen Mind's failing control. Some chambers held Crexan warriors who were fighting each other. Others contained aliens who had simply stopped moving, as if they had forgotten how to function without orders. "Sergeant," whispered Private Chun over the radio, "this is creepy. It's like their whole society is falling apart." "Good," Kim replied. "A broken enemy is easier to kill." They reached the final chamber after 2 hours of careful movement. Dr. Vasquez's device was flashing bright red. Through a crack in the wall, they could see into a vast cavern filled with strange organic structures. In the center of the cavern sat the Queen Mind. She was enormous, easily 3 times the size of a normal Crexan warrior. Her body was partially embedded in the floor, connected to the hive by thick cables that pulsed with chemical signals. Hundreds of smaller Crexan attended to her, bringing food and carrying messages. But something was wrong. The Queen Mind was making distressed sounds, and her attendants moved in confused patterns. The human chemical weapons had reached even here, disrupting her connection to the swarm. Kim studied the chamber layout. There were 4 entrances, all heavily guarded. A direct assault would be suicide. But humans had learned long ago that the direct approach was not always the best approach. "Chun," he whispered, "do you still have those experimental explosive charges?" Private Chun patted his backpack. "Yes, Sergeant. Enough to bring down this whole section." "Perfect. We're not going to fight our way in. We're going to bring the roof down on her." The squad spent 30 minutes placing charges at key structural points around the chamber. The explosives were designed to collapse tunnels, a technique humans had used in mining for centuries. No other species in the galaxy fought by destroying entire sections of buildings. As they worked, Kim noticed something strange. Some of the Queen Mind's attendants had stopped working and were just standing still. Others were moving in circles, as if they had forgotten what they were supposed to be doing. "The Queen Mind is losing it," Chun whispered. "Look at her." Through the crack, they could see the massive alien thrashing weakly. Her chemical signals were becoming erratic. The stress of losing control over her warriors was destroying her ability to think clearly. Kim activated his radio. "Colonel Webb, this is Sergeant Kim. We are in position for final strike." Webb's voice crackled back. "Understood, Sergeant. You are cleared for operation." Kim looked at his squad. "People, this is it. When I trigger these charges, the whole chamber will collapse. The Queen Mind dies, and the swarm becomes just a bunch of confused insects." He held up the detonator. "For Earth, for the Voltar, for everyone who is too weak to fight these monsters themselves." Kim pressed the button. The explosions came in sequence, each one precisely timed to maximize structural damage. The ancient tunnels, carved from solid rock, began to collapse. Massive stones fell from the ceiling, crushing everything below. The Queen Mind's final scream echoed through the hive complex. It was not a sound of pain, but of absolute terror. For the first time in her long life, she understood what it meant to die as an individual, cut off from the collective consciousness of her people. The chamber collapsed completely, burying the Queen Mind under tons of rock. The thick cables that connected her to the hive were severed. Across the entire moon, thousands of Crexan warriors suddenly stopped moving. Kim's squad barely escaped the collapse. They ran through crumbling tunnels as the entire hive structure began to fail. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of confused Crexan warriors crying out in panic. They reached the surface just as the main tunnel system caved in. Across the battlefield, human forces reported the same phenomenon. Crexan warriors were standing motionless or wandering in circles. Some were attacking each other. Others were simply sitting down and refusing to move. Colonel Webb received the report from Sergeant Kim with satisfaction. "Outstanding work, Sergeant. Get your people back to base for medical checkup." He opened his radio to all units. "Attention! All forces. The Queen Mind is dead. The swarm is broken. Begin cleanup operations immediately. Admiral Park, watching from orbit, saw the heat signatures of thousands of Cruxan warriors going dark. The most feared military force in the galaxy had been destroyed by 15,000 humans in less than 12 hours. She opened a channel to the Galactic Council on Nexus Prime. President Vorthek's stone face appeared on the screen. President Vorthek, Park said calmly. This is Admiral Park of the Earth Defense Fleet. I am pleased to report that the Cruxan swarm has been eliminated as a threat to galactic peace. The Council President stared at her in shock. Eliminated? Admiral, our intelligence showed 40,000 Cruxan warriors on that moon. Yes, sir. They are no longer a problem. We will begin evacuation of surviving Veltar civilians immediately. Vorthek's voice was barely a whisper. Admiral, how many human casualties did you suffer? Park checked her reports. 47 killed in action, sir. 112 wounded. Our medical teams expect most of the wounded to return to duty within days. The President said nothing for a long moment. Admiral, the Cruxan swarm has terrorized this galaxy for over 3 centuries. How did you defeat them so? 6 months after the Battle of Veltar Beta, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. The floating seats were all filled, and the observer section was packed with representatives from dozens of species. Everyone wanted to hear what the humans had learned about galactic military capabilities. Ambassador Sarah Chin stood in the center of the chamber, but she was not pleading for help this time. She carried a thick report that made many aliens nervous just looking at it. President Vorthek, Chun said formally. The United Nations of Earth submits its tactical analysis of the Veltar conflict for Council review. The massive stone creature shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Ambassador Chun, the Council appreciates Earth's thorough approach to military documentation. Chun opened the report. During our operations against the Cruxan swarm, human forces conducted detailed analysis of galactic military systems, defensive capabilities, and strategic doctrines. She pressed a button, and images appeared in the air above her. The pictures showed weapons, ships, and battle formations from dozens of different species. Our analysis indicates significant vulnerabilities in current galactic defense strategies. Chun continued in the same calm voice she had used when offering to help. The Veltar. The chamber became very quiet. Ambassador Kethrol of the Zethkari Empire spoke first. His crystal body flashed with nervous energy. Ambassador, what kind of vulnerabilities? Chun looked at him directly. The Empire's reliance on energy shields makes your forces vulnerable to kinetic weapons. Your plasma cannons are powerful, but slow to target moving enemies. Your battle formations assume enemies will attack from predictable directions. She turned to the next section of seats. The Nethrim Confederation's gas-based warriors are effective in space, but cannot operate in solid environments. Your lightning weapons require specific atmospheric conditions. Your command structures are vulnerable to chemical disruption. One by one, she went through every major military power in the galaxy. Each analysis was detailed, accurate, and deeply unsettling to the species involved. Ambassador, President Vorthek interrupted. Why is Earth sharing this information? Chun smiled. Transparency, President Vorthek. If we are to be members of this council, we believe everyone should understand our capabilities and limitations. And what are Earth's limitations? Asked the Merlos representative. We are new to galactic technology. Our ships are slower than yours. Our weapons have shorter range. We have no experience with energy shields or anti-gravity systems. The aliens in the chamber relaxed slightly. Those were significant weaknesses. However, Chun continued, our analysis suggests that in direct military conflict, human forces could defeat any 3 council members simultaneously. The relaxation vanished instantly, that seems. President Vorthek paused, choosing his words carefully. That seems like a very confident assessment. It is not confidence, President Vorthek. It is mathematics. Chun showed another set of images. Human military doctrine focuses on adaptability, environmental advantages, and psychological warfare. Most galactic species fight according to fixed patterns that can be predicted and countered. She gestured to the tactical displays. The Crexon swarm was considered unbeatable because they had overwhelming numbers and perfect coordination. But they had never fought an enemy that used their coordination against them, or one that could function in hostile environments. Ambassador Zefti of the Veltar spoke from her seat. Ambassador Chun, the Veltar people are eternally grateful for human assistance. But this analysis seems to suggest that Earth views the galaxy as ... threatening. Chun's expression softened slightly when she looked at Zefti. Ambassador, Earth helped the Veltar because it was the right thing to do. But we learned something important during that conflict. She paused, looking around the chamber. We learned that when crisis comes, civilized species debate while innocent people die. The Crixon swarm terrorized the galaxy for centuries because everyone assumed someone else would deal with the problem. The chamber was completely silent now. Earth will not make that assumption, Chun said quietly. We will be prepared to stand alone if necessary. President Vorthek leaned forward. Ambassador, are you suggesting that Earth does not trust the Council's ability to maintain peace? President Vorthek, I am stating that Earth will maintain its own ability to ensure peace. Whether the Council chooses to work with us or not is up to you. At that moment, alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. Emergency lights flashed as the Council's communication officers received urgent messages. President Vorthek called one of the officers. We are receiving distress signals from the Outer Rim. The Zerathi Dominion has launched attacks against 3 Council member worlds. The President's stone face showed no emotion, but his voice carried concern. Details, officer. Silicon-based life forms, sir. They absorb metal and stone to build their bodies. Very aggressive expansion pattern. They have already consumed 2 mining colonies and are moving toward inhabited systems. The chamber erupted in worried conversations. The Zerathi were known to be dangerous, but they had never attacked Council space before. President Vorthek called for order. The Council will debate response options immediately. All members are requested to. President Vorthek, Chun interrupted. Earth stands ready to assist any Council member facing existential threat. The chamber fell silent again. Those words had been spoken before, 6 months ago, when everyone thought they were meaningless. Now everyone knew better. Ambassador Kethril spoke carefully. Ambassador Chun, the Zerathi are not like the Crexon. They are made of living metal and stone. Energy weapons are ineffective against them. They can rebuild their bodies from any available materials. Chun nodded. We understand, Ambassador Kethril. Human military planners studied the Zerathi threat during our galactic defense analysis. She smiled, and several aliens felt a chill. We have some ideas. President Vorthek looked around the chamber. The major powers were all calculating quietly. They remembered how quickly the humans had destroyed the unbeatable Crexon swarm. They remembered the detailed analysis of their own military weaknesses. Ambassador Chun, the President said slowly, the Council would welcome Earth's assessment of the Zerathi situation. Chun opened another section of her report. The Zerathi Dominion consists of approximately 60,000 individual units, organized into mining and military castes. They reproduce by breaking off pieces of themselves and combining with local materials. Images appeared showing the silicon-based aliens. They looked like living sculptures made of metal and rock, constantly changing shape as they absorbed new materials. Their primary weakness is dependency on specific mineral compositions for reproduction. They require rare earth elements that are not available on most worlds. Chun looked around the chamber. Human forces could disrupt their supply chains and force them to retreat by denying access to essential materials. How long would such an operation take? Asked the Merlos representative. 3 weeks, Chun replied without hesitation. 2 weeks to locate and secure their supply sources, 1 week to force their withdrawal. The alien stared at her. The confidence was unsettling, but the Veltar experience had shown that human confidence was usually justified. President Vothak made his decision. The Galactic Council formally requests Earth's assistance in resolving the Zirithi crisis. Chun nodded. Earth accepts. Our forces will deploy immediately. As the session ended, representatives from dozens of species approached Chin privately. Some wanted to discuss military cooperation. Others wanted to understand human technology. A few wanted to make sure they would never be on the wrong side of human military planning. The Zethkuri ambassador was the most direct. Ambassador Chen, the Empire would be interested in a mutual defense agreement with Earth. Chun looked at him thoughtfully. Ambassador Kethral, Earth is always willing to discuss partnerships with those who share our values. And what are Earth's values? Simple, Ambassador. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. Stop bullies before they grow too strong. And always be prepared for the next threat. She paused, looking out the chamber windows at the stars beyond. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Ambassador. It is full of species that want to hurt others. Earth learned long ago that peace comes from strength, not from hoping everyone will be nice. 3 days later, human ships left Earth orbit again. This time, the galaxy watched with very different feelings. The primitive Deathworlders were no longer curiosities. They were the sword that protected civilization. And everyone knew that sword was sharp enough to cut both ways. On Earth, military leaders continued their preparations. The galaxy had taught them that threats could come from anywhere. The next crisis might not wait for council debates or diplomatic solutions. Admiral Park stood in the same command center where she had planned the Veltar operation. Around her, officers planned responses to 30 different potential conflicts. Across the galaxy, Admiral asked her aide, "Do you think the other species will ever truly trust us?" Park looked at the tactical displays showing human forces positioned throughout Council space. "Lieutenant, trust is not the goal. Respect is the goal. And respect comes from being too dangerous to ignore and too valuable to make an enemy."